Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment, and today I'm very happy to have with me Terry Draper, who has a brand new album out called In the Beginning. Now, it's interesting that before we hit record, we were talking about the fact that this is your 20th solo record, but it wasn't where you started out. You've been at this since, God, like, weren't you on the arc? My good grief. So let's just have a little recap of what got you into the business, where you started.
Yeah, I have been doing this a while, Tommy. Actually, someone was saying to me the other day that this new record, it's really good. I said, well, I've been doing this for over 50 years. I'm starting to get the hang of it. But back in the 60s, I played in a bunch of bar bands with Virgil Scott and all sorts of people and just had a grand old time. 1970, John Wallacechuck and I put a band together, just a recording act actually, called White Male, and released a 45. That's a very small record that you play at 45 revolutions per minute. I'm down here in Florida, so people might think it's something other than a record. Anyway, that was on Prawn Records, a song that John wrote called I'm Dream Daying. So that was my first foray into vinyl. And then we formed the band Mud Cow with D Long, who I'd met back in the 60s at a battle of the bands. He was in a band called the Polychromatic Experiment. What a great name. And they were a really good band. So when John and I were looking to form a band doing sort of pseudo progressive rock, I actually call it progressive pop. I remembered D and what a talent he was and hunted him down through some friends and the grapevine of the music industry. And we formed a band called Mud Cow. Don't ask me why it was called Mud Cow. John had a dream one night. We called it Mud Cow. Well, that band did some recording, but never released anything, and it fell apart. I can remember the afternoon it fell apart. We were playing at the Trenton Hotel, and we were just getting ready to do the Saturday afternoon matinee. God, I hated those things. And the manager called us into his office because he wanted us to meet Misty, and she was going over our set list, deciding on which songs she was going to strip to. And yeah, it was Trenton. And when the meeting was over and we were walking back up the stairs to the fourth floor to our dormitory, Dee turned around to all of us and said, that's it, I'm done. He said, I quit playing the bars years ago because I didn't want to do this. And we tried, and here we are backing up strippers playing Proud Mary and Jumpin' Jack Flash. And we're still doing our originals. In fact, that band used to play Dear Christine, a Klaatu song, and there was another one or two. I think Anus of Uranus, we played a bit. There was a few songs that were. Anyway, that band collapsed that night, and everybody went their separate ways. And then John hooked up with Terry Brown, and him and Dee did a record, and they weren't thrilled with the session drummers they were getting.
Editor's note, at this point in our conversation, Terry is about to tell us how the infamous band Klaatu was formed. Now back to the show.
So John called me up to see if I wanted to join a band, and like an idiot, I said yes. So we did a bunch of singles. The first single came out in 73. John and Dee did Sub Rosa Subway back with Anus of Uranus. And then I came along and we put out California Jam, True Life Hero, and eventually, of course, we finished the album that took 3 years, and we had a record out, an actual LP in 1976. Yeah, there was a succession of records. We did 5 studio albums. There's a couple of best ofs and collections, and a rarities package, a double CD. And then we did a reunion concert in 2005 that's also on record and CD. And then, back in 97, I put out my first solo album, Light Years Later. And here we are in 2023 with my 20th solo album, In the Beginning. It's been an interesting ride.
No kidding. I just want to touch on the fact that for quite a while, people thought that Klaatu was secretly the Beatles. That had to be quite the experience for you guys. I know we've beaten that to death over the years, but that's quite the way to start your recording career, really, is to be mistaken for the Beatles. And there were no photos of you guys on that album. So,
Well, that was part of our credo, was let the music speak for itself. And this was the mid 70s. We're living in a world of hype and glam rock. And, if Mick Jagger walked by your studio while you were recording, he got a credit. And all the pictures of all the bands, the fans were on, everybody's scarves and hair were blowing in the wind. And it just was all so very incidental. And we were very serious about what we were doing musically. And when John suggested that we don't use any names or photos, we all jumped on it. This is long before the first album came out, back in 74, I think. And so I took it upon myself to find us an artist who could project the sound we were attempting. And I looked at dozens of artists, and finally one day I met Ted Jones. And I remember going home that night, calling John up. I said, "Hey, John, guess what? I found the guy." And then we had this lovely relationship with Ted. Him and I became best of friends up until his passing a year and a half ago. But then Ted's done over half of my own album covers. The 20 I've done, Ted's done over half of them, because he just kept painting and I kept recording, and it was a beautiful thing.
well, he certainly was a very gifted and talented artist. I mean, inspired falls short, that's for sure. We are here to talk about In the Beginning, and it's a brilliant record. And I have to think, last time I saw you in person was at Al Mayer's Celebration of Life at Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto. And I said, oops, I think I missed the timeline to talk to you about your new album. And you said, well, I'll be starting another one in a month, whatever. And
Yeah.
so I just have to think, when do you ever sleep? I mean, you've got so much going on. And on this record, there aren't very many musicians. You do almost all of it. Like, you eat and sleep and breathe the art.
And we'll be right back after this.
Since we bought a place down here near Clearwater, Florida, 7 years ago, we've now got into this routine of spending 6 months here and then 6 months at home, plus traveling all over the place, because our sons live helter skelter. One's in Australia, the other one's in Turkey. So we do a lot of bopping around. But the way it's working out now is that I get down here and I feel like I'm on holiday, but I have a little studio here and a piano. And, I spend a lot of time putzing around in the water. That's when a lot of the lyrics come together, because it's just going through my head. Earworms. Talk about an earworm. I'll start writing a song and work on it for like weeks. And so it invades my whole existence. So then I do the sketches down here. And then when we go home after 6 months, I got a bunch of new songs that I've written and sketched. And I take the MIDI data and I plug it into the big rig at home, into the studio, and then use all the fancy samples and get it all happening, and then do the vocals and ask this one to play guitar and that one to do background vocals. And I just pull it all together. So it's funny, I got back down here a month ago and the album's done. I got the CDs manufactured, and it's like I realized I hadn't written a song in 3 or 4 months because I've been so busy pulling all the pieces together for this one. And so I'm thinking, well, 3 or 4 months, that's a long time. Maybe my muse has left. And a week later, I'd written 2 new songs. So yeah, that's just the way it is. I spend the summer recording and pulling it all together, and the winter writing. So it's working out well. I get an album out just in time for Christmas every year.
That certainly is something. How you maintain that pace blows me away. And you mentioned how you get obsessed with the songs. When I'm working on a new record, I literally hear the song that I'm working on apart. I hear it in my sleep, you know?
Yeah. You wake up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Maybe you don't, Tommy, but I do. And there it is. It's in my head. I'm sitting there having a whiz, and it's like the song. It's like, Jesus Christ, can I get some sleep here? The thing is that inspiration comes from everywhere, the strangest places. I never sit down at the piano and start writing. Well, I do, but I never use what I've written. Melodies and lyrics don't mean anything. If I don't have the idea or a lyric to start with, then I don't know what I'm trying to do. I don't know whether should I be in a minor mode, should it be a happy song, am I sad, what's going on? I have no idea until I have a subject matter. Last year I was watching this TV program on adventurers and explorers, and they were talking about Magellan, the first man to sail around the world. And so as I'm watching this show and they're telling me the history of all this, Ferdinand Magellan died in the Philippines. His first captain, Sebastiano Elcano, sailed his ship home back to Seville in Spain, and King Charles granted him a coat of arms. And in Latin, his coat of arms says first to navigate the globe, first to encircle the globe. That's the word they use. And it's just like, wait a minute, hold on. My grade 5 history book, Pirates and Pathfinders, said that Magellan was the first man to go around the world, but he didn't. It was this other fellow. And I said, well, this is great. I got to share this information with everybody. And rather than run around and retell the story, I sat down with pen and paper at the piano, and I sing the song from the first person. I am Sebastiano Elcano. You know me not, nor my work, but I am first to circumnavigate the earth. And so here it is that I'm telling this. It's only 3.5 minute long song, but it tells this little story about a fact I never knew. And I study this stuff. I love history. So I had to share that. So inspiration can come from absolutely anywhere.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I was going to ask you about Sebastian Elcano. And you know what's stuck in my head right now? There's a breeze, it's the wind in the willows. So, Wind in the Willows, the children's story, what brought that to your consciousness?
I always loved that story. Kenneth Grahame was the author. I remember reading it when I was young. I remember reading it to my kids when they were little. And it's always just interested me. I'm an avid reader. So I guess I started all aboard, I don't know, a long time ago. And I always loved Mr. Toad. There's an affinity I have for him. I think there's something similar about our personalities. He's a little boisterous, a little full of himself, a little humble on the other side. He reminds me of Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners. And I identify with Ralph too, his own worst enemy is himself. And so this song, All Aboard's been kicking around for 10 years. And every once in a while, I'll pull it out and look at it. Yeah, whatever. Putz with it for a few days and then go do something else, And the last time I pulled it out was last year or earlier this year, I guess. And I said, you know what? I'm going to finish this one. And that beautiful voice that you were imitating so nicely is Brenda Webb, good friend of mine. She sang on the last 7, 8 albums of mine, done the background vocals. She missed one because of COVID, but it's really interesting story. I met Brenda 10 or 12 years ago. This old friend of mine I played in a band with in 1967 called the Kingdom Show Band. Rick Hicks, the bass player, he calls me up out of the blue 40 years later, and he says, hey, I'm putting together this tribute band. I want you to be in it. I said, really? He says, yeah, I want you to play drums. I said, drums? Rick, I haven't played drums in years. I have this Japanese drummer, does everything I tell him. So he says, well, this is what I want to do. And I said, okay. I said, well, let me take a listen. My wife got the CD for Christmas. I'll get back to you. So I went and listened to Adele, 18, and the music's not in my wheelhouse, but it's really good. And so I called Rick the next day. I said, Rick, you got a girl that can sing this shit? He says, I do. I said, all right, I'm in. And then I went and sat down at the kit every day for an hour trying to relearn how to play the drums. And that's my first instrument that I started on was the drums. So anyway, I ended up meeting this woman and we called the band An Evening with Adele. And Brenda, who's 50 something and kind of thin, would put on a red wig and garish makeup and a foam suit and then affect her Cockney accent. So this is Albert Hall, is it? And she would transform herself into Adele and then sing like that. She's fabulous. And so I've been enlisting her services ever since. We've become very close over the years.
Yeah, well, she certainly has a fine voice, no doubt. One other musician that's on the record that caught my attention is Fernando Perdomo. I discovered him kind of by accident when the PR company sent me a release from Carmine A Piece. So it's a piece Perdomo running up that hill. And I listened to that and I thought, okay, well, Carmine obviously is brilliant, but who the heck is this guitar player? Like, oh my God, I got to talk to this guy because I do a series, Guitar Talk, where it's just talking about six strings and everything you can do with them. And, he immediately said, yeah, let's do it. He's such a humble and open guy, a brilliant guitar player. Now, he claims that he's not a shredder. He certainly can shred. I mean, the fact that he doesn't tap or whatever, the fact that he doesn't tap, that doesn't mean he's not a shredder, but he's a melodic player and plays on Pig's Ears from your new record.
Yeah.
And the first thing because I didn't know who played on what. I'm just listening in my truck and I thought, I bet you that's Fernando because he's playing the melody, the pig's ears into person. And then he puts a little flair onto it. But brilliant player. I mean, how did you connect with him initially?
Through the internet, Facebook. There's a site called Klaatu Rocks. And I go there frequently and see what's going on. And the first time I think I saw Fernando, he had on a black T-shirt that said, just relax, chill out and listen to or whatever. And it said Klaatu on his T-shirt.
Editor's note, the trendy phrase that neither Terry nor I could remember in the heat of the conversation was the whole stay calm and trend. So Fernando's T-shirt likely would have said, stay calm and listen to Klaatu. Now back to the show.
And somebody posted it on that site and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. So we got talking and I've done a few things for him over the years. I've played on a couple of his songs. He actually got me to sing one. He put out an album of all of his songs sung by other people. And I did this song for him. Turned out really nice. I actually played the drums as well and a little mellotron on it because I was having so much fun. And then last year I was doing Bread and Circus. And the song Bread and Circus in particular, I wanted to have that Robert Fripp King Crimson wildness. I wanted this to be right on the edge. Bread and circus, what I'm actually singing about is an old Roman phrase that they would say, you give the peasants, the populace, give them bread and circus. Make sure you feed them and give them wine and entertain them, the Colosseum. So when I look around me today, especially living down here in the States, what do I see but bread and circus? Keep the masses entertained, keep them fed. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all showmanship. It's all. So anyway, that's what it's about. And I wanted the song to have a real edge. So I sent Fernando a message. I said, hey, I'm working on this song and I'm looking for a little frippery. Are you interested? He said, fabulous. Send me the song. So I sent him the song. He sent me back the tracks the next day, which, most people take a few weeks. Sometimes I got to cajole them a little. No, he sent them right back the next day, and they were brilliant.
And we'll be right back after this.
And I asked him to play some guitar. And then, of course, I grab these bits and pieces that people send me. And they don't always end up where they played them. I'll grab this and put it over here. I'll take it, reverse it. I like to play with audio and have some fun with it. And so it turned out great. And when this one came along, I sent him the song. I said, here's a little 3-minute ditty about songwriting, because that's what I'm writing about. It's turning a pig's ear into a purse. And this is what we do when we write songs. We start off with this little idea, and it's not too much. And then with a couple of messy metaphors and some, melodies, you turn this pig's ear into a purse. And he said, what a great idea. I love to play on. He sent me the files the next day again. And he played so differently. He's playing like Paul McCartney Ram type melodies on the guitar, and sweet pop. He gets it. He understands what I'm trying to do and delivers. He's been on 2 of my songs now, and I will go to that well again.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that I don't think gets any sleep, because I'm trying to keep up with what he's doing is just insane. I mean,
he's working with everybody. I mean, I think he's an engineer producer first, but he's a first class guitar player. And so he's playing in bands. He was in the Marshall Crenshaw's band, playing around live. So he does live stuff. He's been on the Close to the Edge cruise ship that does the prog rock bands. Yes goes on it, and he gets on those and plays with his own friends and his own band, and then sits in with Nectar and all sorts of other stuff. Every time I turn around, he's somewhere else doing something else. He's a very busy guy.
Absolutely. I want to get back to the record. This is quite the package. I mean, you've got some brilliant artwork and the stickers and posters that are included in this digital package that you've just put out. In the beginning, it's a fabulous album. There are 13 songs, including the reprise. It's recorded well. It's brilliantly thought out. You get the music, you get the posters, you get the stickers, you get the CD, all at terrydraper.com. Just to give people an idea of what it's all about, I think maybe we should just take a minute and check out the All Aboard reprise.
Good idea.
I sincerely thank you all.
As I said, that is fabulous, man. And the production that goes into this, you've got to be working with some really talented videographers. And who's directing this stuff and so on?
I met this fellow, Jamie Grant, quite a few years ago now. He had a record coming out called McPherson Grant. He was working with this fellow. Jamie lives in Ontario, Queensboro, north of Kingston. And McPherson, his partner, I think, lives in Oregon or Washington State. Anyway, they've been working together, and they did this silly little song, Ollie something. But anyway, they asked me to play drums on it. And so I sent them a drum track, and it was timpani and backwards cymbals, and it just was right off the wall. But so was their song. And so we had a lovely time. And shortly thereafter, I was putting out an album called In My Garden, the only vinyl I've done in my solo career. And it was a retrospective. I called it In My Garden because it contains some of my favorite flowers and a couple of new songs. One of the new songs I'd written at that time was called Fish. And I called Jamie Grant up and said, hey, I could really use a video for this song, Fish. What do you charge? And he said, well, I won't charge you anything, but I would like some future considerations. Well, I said, okay, that's a good deal. So he did that song for me. And then the next album came along and he said, you need some videos. I said, yeah. So that was 4 or 5 albums ago. And since then, he's done a video for every song on every album. And I don't interfere. It's his baby. I've done my thing. He goes and does his thing. I'm not going to tell him what to do. I just let him run with, hopefully he understands what I'm doing. I know my favorite so far on this new album is the end of In the Beginning. I'm at a Roman ruin in Turkey called Perga. And it was a very hot day. And there I am wandering across, my wife's filming me. And I'm wandering across the arena with my parasol because it was very hot. And that's in the video at the end. So I send stuff to Jamie. I give him ideas, but mostly here's the song, listen to the lyrics, go do your thing. He was the guy that said to me, you should do some swag for this album. You remember the good old days when you got your Sgt. Pepper record and you pulled out that cardboard thing and you had the bass drum with the logo on it and a little mustache you could cut out and wear? Dark Side of the Moon, you got that picture of the pyramids all in green. And I remember those days fondly. The package was all important. That's why I looked so hard for an artist when we had Klaatu going and found Ted Jones. He said, well, do a poster and some stickers. Like, come on, I don't know. I say, and so he started sending me some images. And I'm thinking, wow, this is great because he helped me do the last 2 album covers as well. And he's done a brilliant job. And now he's got all this other stuff coming out. And he's using some AI. I know that. But then he sends me a sticker, this big fat frog in a swamp in a spacesuit with headphones on. And it's Swamp Manor Studios. And I go, that's perfect. That's just great. And so when you order the CD, you get the 12-inch by 18-inch poster. You get the postcard. And on the postcard, one side is this Emerald City kind of looking building from Wizard of Oz. And it says In the Beginning. And on the back, it's got the 20 CDs that I've recorded so far, solo. And then there's a couple of stickers in it. And then you get the whole package. And I've been getting rave reviews. People are really digging getting some stuff to hold on to and not just a CD.
Yeah, well, after we finish recording this, I have to talk to you about getting my physical copies. I've been listening to the digital files in my truck for the last week, and I love the album. Yeah, brilliant job. You know, all these things you're talking about, somebody years ago told me that the only problem I had was that I needed to surround myself with the best people that I could. And it's made a huge difference in my music and in my career in general. You know, when you surround yourself with like-minded people who, in my case, I like to put myself in a situation with people that I consider to be a bit above me, talent-wise. And your work is evidence of not only your brilliance, but the fact that you surround yourself with brilliant people as well.
You know what? You don't want to be the best guy in the band. You want to work with people who are going to drag you forward, pull you up. And being the best guy in the band is not how you do it. You don't want to be the smartest guy in the room either. You want to learn from the people you associate with. At least I do. And I hear what you're saying. That's the way I feel about it too. I just want to work with people that are better than me and make me look good. And I say that to my friends all the time. I say, we did it again. I call it FTA, fooled them again.
Well, you certainly fooled me again.
Yeah, that's what I call it. I call it fooled them again. They think I'm brilliant.
This album is great. I'm so glad that it's finally out. You just need to go to terrydraper.com to get the complete package. It's brilliant. Terry, I don't want to take up your whole day. I know you've got some sun and surf to get into down there in sunny Florida. So listen, thanks so much once again for doing this with me. And until next time, cheers.
Thanks, Tommy. It's always a pleasure talking about music with you. And keep on rocking, brother.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. And hey, here's some news. We've just recently joined forces with 519 magazine, so you can check out my interviews there as well. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn, all rights reserved. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help us keep it going, why don't you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, cheers.